The white colonial on its perfect Newton lot was a masterpiece of suburban aspiration. In the weak December light, its symmetrical black shutters and tasteful wreath presented an image of seamless, upper-class harmony. But inside 1247 Elmwood Drive, the chill had nothing to do with the weather. "Mom, your medication." Jennifer Wilson's first act upon returning from her senior management job was not to shed her coat, but to portion out her mother's pills. The ritual of managing her parents' health, her father's heart, her mother's diabetes, was as much a part of her day as the meetings and balance sheets. Margaret Wilson didn't look up from her phone. She murmured, her face illuminated by the glow of Rebecca's Instagram. "Oh, Jennifer, look, another multi-million-dollar closing for Rebecca, in Bel Air." "I see," Jennifer said, her voice flat. She moved to the kitchen, where the real work awaited. Her father's forgetfulness was worsening, making his strict sodium restrictions a life-or-death calculation. The sharp thwack of her knife on the cutting board was the only sound of her frustration. The doorbell sliced through the quiet. A man she didn't know stood on the stoop. "Wilson residence?" "Yes. Here regarding a debt for a Miss Rebecca." Jennifer was outside in an instant, pulling the door shut behind her. "How much this time?" she asked, her voice low and tight. This was the third creditor this year. As she negotiated, she felt the familiar, sickening lurch in her stomach, not at the debt, but at the silence she was once again buying for her sister. Later, in the blue light of her laptop, the Excel spreadsheet told the true story of the Wilson family: property taxes, medical bills, roof repairs, and the secret, shameful line item labeled R-MISC. A notification glowed on her phone. A text from Michael, a colleague. "Burning the midnight oil again?" As always, she typed back, a small, warm ember of connection in the cold house. On Christmas Eve, the house was, to any outside observer, perfect. Jennifer had made sure of it. The 8-foot fur glittered with heirloom ornaments. The scent of honey-glazed ham and evergreen filled the air. The table was laid with her grandmother's Irish linen and her mother's prized china, a scene of curated nostalgia. Nat King Cole's voice, her father's favorite, wove through the room. "Perfect," Jennifer whispered, a mantra she'd repeated for 28 years, but this year, the word felt hollow. Her parents descended the stairs, dressed with an uncharacteristic elegance. Her father, David, was in a new suit. Her mother's makeup was flawless. The air hummed with a singular anticipation. A confident honk announced the guest of honor. "Rebecca." Margaret rushed to the door. From the kitchen, Jennifer listened to the symphony of her sister's arrival, the exclamations over the new Range Rover, the sharp click of Louboutins on the hardwood. "My God, the tree," Rebecca's voice carried, laced with condescension. "A bit traditional, isn't it?" As Jennifer put the final touches on the meal, Rebecca commandeered the living room with a flashy presentation on her tablet, photos of luxury listings, celebrity clients, graphs showing a 200% sales increase. Their parents watched, rapt, their applause a roaring in Jennifer's ears. No one noticed Jennifer's presence. They never did. "Presents," Margaret trilled. Jennifer joined the circle as her mother presented Rebecca with an envelope. "For our star." Inside was a ticket for the top suite on a Royal Caribbean cruise. Rebecca squealed, immediately photographing it for her feed. "And for Jennifer," David said, his tone shifting from pride to practicality. He handed her a large, crinkled paper bag. Inside, Jennifer found a worn broom, a dustpan, a bundle of rags, and a plastic name tag that read, "Housekeeper." "This should cover it, right?" David chuckled. "Even got you a title." "It suits you perfectly," Margaret added, as if stating an obvious fact. The room went silent, the cruelty hanging in the air like a physical weight. Jennifer stood. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as she placed the gifts neatly on the table. The silence was absolute now. "Thank you," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "I think I'll take a break." Upstairs, the sound of their resumed laughter followed her. She opened her closet. The suitcase was already packed, passport, bank book, degrees, everything she needed. On her desk, she left a single, stark envelope. "Thank you for the 28 years." No one saw her go. The Christmas tree lights winked at her back as she closed the front door for the last time. A taxi idled at the curb. As it pulled away through the falling snow, she didn't look back. "This is it," Michael said, holding out the keys to a brick walk-up in Boston's Back Bay. The apartment was small, but sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating the old, warm wood floors. It was hers. "Thank you," Jennifer said, the words carrying the weight of her liberation. The following days were a blur of necessary tasks, transferring accounts, settling into her new role at work. When Michael asked about her family, her answer was simple: "They haven't noticed." She was right. For a few days, the illusion held. Then, the foundations began to crack. The first sign was an overdue notice for the phone bill. Then, David stood bewildered before his empty pill organizer, a complex system of Jennifer's devising he'd never had to understand. Margaret's blood sugar spiked without Jennifer's meticulously balanced meals. "Jennifer, where are you?" Her mother's voice finally held a tremor of fear, a question asked to an empty house. At church, neighbors asked after the reliable eldest daughter. The lawn grew shaggy. The perfect facade began to peel. The crisis came on the 10th day. Their neighbor, Mrs. Thomas, found Margaret collapsed on the garden steps, dizzy and disoriented after attempting her doctor's appointment alone. In the stark light of the Newton Wellesley Hospital, a doctor addressed a frantic David. "Her blood pressure is dangerously high. Her diabetes is completely unmanaged. We've tried contacting her sister, but there's no answer." David sank into a chair, the truth crashing down upon him. Rebecca, the dazzling daughter, had vanished days ago, her cruise ship now somewhere in the Caribbean sun. And Jennifer, the quiet, constant force that had held their entire world together, was gone, leaving only a profound and echoing silence in her wake. The illusion of her sister's life had finally collapsed. Rebecca had cashed in her cruise tickets and vanished, leaving only a digital ghost, a deleted Instagram account and a void of unanswered questions. The truth, as it often does, found Jennifer at her new workplace. "Miss Wilson, a call for you. It's about your sister." From her real estate firm, Jennifer's stomach tightened. "Put them through." The supervisor's voice was grim, outlining a betrayal more profound than mere debt: embezzled client deposits, a staggering sum, most of it funneled into the bottomless pit of online gambling. "If you have any idea of her whereabouts." But Jennifer didn't. The sister who had curated her life for public consumption was now truly, frighteningly absent. That night, in the quiet of her Back Bay apartment, the silence felt heavier than ever. Her phone glowed with unread messages to her parents. A text from Michael appeared. "Everything okay? Just thinking." She typed back, watching the snow fall outside. It was a clean, quiet cold, so different from the oppressive chill of her old home. Then, the phone rang. Not a text, a call. "Jennifer?" Her mother's voice was a fragile thread, trembling with a desperation she had never heard before. "Where are you? Please, you have to come back." In the background, her father's distressed mumbling formed a chaotic chorus of panic. "Please, we need you." Jennifer listened to the crack in their perfect world. Then, she quietly ended the call. She sent a new message to Michael. "I need you to look into a few things for me tomorrow." The time for blind devotion was over. It was time for the unvarnished truth, about her father's mind, her mother's body, and the full, devastating scope of her sister's ruin. The hospital waiting room was hushed in the pale morning light. When her father appeared, he was a shell of the man she remembered, shoulders slumped, exhaustion etched deep into his face. "Jennifer?" he whispered, his eyes widening in a mixture of shock and shame. "Dad, sit down." She opened the file Michael had compiled. The first page held her father's diagnosis: early-stage Alzheimer's, the onset 2 years prior. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to be a burden," he mumbled, unable to meet her gaze. "That wasn't kindness, Dad, that was pride." She turned the page to her mother's records: diabetic nephropathy, hypertensive heart strain, depression, a cascade of failure, accelerated in the single month of Jennifer's absence. "The doctor says she needs constant care," her father said, his voice breaking. "But Rebecca, and I can't." Then came the financials, bank statements bleeding red, foreclosure notices. The catalyst was clear: over $2 million embezzled, lost to the digital roulette wheel. The luxury cars and designer bags had been props in a tragic play. with a trembling hand. Her father passed her a letter. Rebecca's confession was scrawled on the page. Dear family, I am the worst kind of person. I've lost everything, the money, my job, and most of all, your trust. But my greatest sin was my jealousy of you, Jennifer. You were always so capable, so strong. I built a glittering lie to hide my emptiness, and I looked down on you to make myself feel tall. I'm at a rehab facility in Las Vegas. I will turn myself in. It's the only atonement I have left. I'm so sorry. Silence descended, thick and heavy with regret. Jennifer, her father rasped. We were such fools. A rustle came from the bed. Her mother's eyes fluttered open. Jennifer, is it really you? Yes, Mom, it's me. Tears welled in her mother's eyes. I'm so sorry, for everything. Just then, Michael's text arrived. A lifeline from the world outside their tragedy. The neighbors are organizing a support roster for your parents. They see now. They see everything you carried. A follow-up image showed the overdue phone bill. Stamped, paid. The community had quietly shouldered the debt. Jennifer took a deep breath. The weight of 28 years shifting, not disappearing, but becoming something she could finally share. Let's talk about what happens now, she began, her voice quiet but firm. Dad's treatment plan, Mom's long-term care, and how this works with the life I'm building for myself. Her parents listened, truly listened, for the first time. But these are the conditions, she stated. We move forward as equals. There will be no more one-sided sacrifices. 6 months later, the summer sun warmed the bricks of her Back Bay apartment. Jennifer sipped her coffee, reviewing a shared digital care calendar on her laptop. This looks workable, Michael said, leaning in. Their relationship had deepened in the quiet spaces of mutual support. Yes, care workers during the week, me on weekends, and Mrs. Thomas next door as the anchor. Life had found a new, imperfect rhythm. Her father, stabilized on medication, awaited her for their weekly chess game, a ritual where more was communicated in the shared silence over the board than in years of family dinners. I pushed you too hard, he'd admitted during their last game, moving his knight with deliberate care. Her mother, in a dedicated facility, was slowly reclaiming her health. On her last visit, she'd presented Jennifer with a clumsily knitted pair of gloves. I thought they would suit you, she'd said, her voice softened by humility and effort. And Rebecca's letters came, like milestones on a long road back. She wrote of her $15 an hour job at a supermarket, of the hard-won wisdom from her counselor. True happiness begins with living honestly with yourself. The path to restitution was mapped in decades, not days, but she was walking it. The power of the community, once an invisible network, was now a tangible force. Meals from neighbors, warm greetings at church, a shared vigilance that meant no one had to fall alone. Jennifer? Michael's voice pulled her from her thoughts. That lunch at your parents' this Sunday, would it be all right if I joined? The question surprised her, a pleasant sign of how deeply intertwined their lives had become. Of course, she said, a genuine smile touching her lips. These weekend gatherings, humble and real, were becoming their new tradition. She stood, ready to leave for her chess date. Perfect families were a myth, but this messy, honest, and fiercely supported reality was something far more durable. The spring storm had passed. In its wake was not a return to what was, but the steady, hopeful beginning of what could be. Let's go, Michael. As they stepped out into the warm summer air, she knew challenges remained, but she carried a new certainty, one that warmed her more than the sun. She was not, and would never again have to be, alone.